Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
That is the Hall of Famer, David Aldridge, of course, senior columnist at The Athletic, covering everything in DC sports. David, how are you, sir?
Well, Craig, I'm doing fine. How about you?
I am doing well. Appreciate your time as always. And I wanted to have you on today, talk a little Commanders. And you're someone who has covered so many different, obviously, teams here in D.C., but the NBA throughout your career. And you are quite familiar with the do your job mantra, having covered Greg Popovich, who, like Bill Belichick, employs that quite often. He might have his own spin on it. But when you hear that phrase, when you hear do your job, like, what does that mean to you before we get to Ron Rivera's decision to use it?
I mean, I don't. I think it doesn't mean anything unless your team wins big, right? Like, only reason people affiliate it with Greg Popovich and Bill Belichick is because their teams have won championships. So I think it just means, stop trying to do other people's work. You have to do everything that you are assigned to do completely. And if you don't do that, you haven't completed your work. You haven't completed your task. And I'm guessing that it was a reminder. I'm not sure who it was a reminder to, but I'm sure it was a reminder to some people on the team to complete their task, their given task to completion, and to not skip steps. They certainly have talked about that with regard to, I think, Emmanuel Forbes in the last few days, is that he has struggled a little bit to finish his task, to do his task correctly. And so I think that's where that's what they're getting at. And I don't know if it's just him, but I think they are definitely trying to get that point home to their team where it's still young and still inexperienced in spots.
My question would be, of course, do you think this just falls on deaf ears? Because it's one thing if this is kind of your mantra all the time, if this is who you are, this is who you bleed, to implement this in the middle of a season, to put a couple it's not even like they got fancy signs done. They printed out some pieces of paper with big enough font that you could read it and hang it around the building. Like, what kind of effect does this and whatever coaching points go with it have on this team?
Yeah, I mean, again, Craig, I don't think a sign is going to make them play better in Atlanta Sunday. I don't think it's going to make them play worse either. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things that a team does during the course of a season. It does not. I don't think it carries any particular weight to their overall performance. I think it's just a reminder that they've had some pretty significant slippage in 2 of the last 3 games. And for them to have any chance to compete, they're going to have to be a lot better in a lot more categories to have a chance to win, whether it's at Atlanta or at New York or against Philly in 2 weeks. They got to be better, to have a shot. And they just don't right now, or at least coming off the Chicago game. That was a disaster, pretty much all 3 phases. And so I think they just wanted to get back to basics.
David Aldridge, senior columnist at The Athletic, with us here on The Hoffman Show. Like, if you could, I mean, they're going to work on everything. So, actually, I was going to ask if you could fix one thing. It's like, well, then we're still going to lose. They got too much going wrong right now. But, like, defensively, where do you see, as you talk to people, as you obviously work with Ben Standig in your building, and as you go out to the games, like, and watch with your own eyes, like, where do you think the biggest problems are and why they have yet again gotten off to a slow start?
Well, it's odd to me, Craig. I'm not quite sure I understand. Well, I sort of understand, but, unfortunately, Jack doesn't say a whole lot in his pressers.
Sure doesn't.
On Thursdays. I'm not quite sure why they are all in on playing so much man all of a sudden this year. Like I thought they played a lot of zone last year and played it pretty good, with the 3 safeties and stuff. I mean, I thought they were playing pretty decent zone and their numbers were good, and defensively they were pretty good. But boy, they play a lot of man now, and I don't know that their man personnel is really getting it done. And I think, to be fair, I think part of it, I mean, I get it. Like, they want to, they want to force more turnovers, and maybe the rationale there is we have a young quarterback. We can't put him out there and expose him, and we need to help him out as much as we can. And part of the way we can help him is by creating shorter fields, and he has easier drives. And so we draft a cornerback in the first round that we think can take the ball away. Okay, I guess I understand that, but boy, you're leaving yourself exposed. And I could be completely wrong on this synopsis, by the way, but it seems like that is the rationale, because it certainly seems to me like they're playing a whole lot more zone than they did last year, or a whole lot more man,
yes,
I should say, than they did last year. And I'm not sure why they're doing that, because they played the zone pretty good, I thought, last year.
No, I totally agree. And I think what's interesting, too, is like there's a version of that also is plaguing, to the extent that their offense is plagued, their offense, where I don't know that Eric Bieniemy has really adjusted to the level that he needs to calling plays for Sam Howell versus Patrick Mahomes, and that means his run-pass splits, the type of protection calls that are in place for a quarterback that takes a lot of sacks compared to one who doesn't in Mahomes. And I wonder, is this like an arrogance thing that they think their players are better than they are? Is it just a misreading of the situation? Have they lost their minds? Like, is this coming from the top in Rivera? Like, is it some way reflective of him? Like, I don't know fully how to make sense of it. It sounds like you don't fully either, but what's your best guess? Because otherwise we just sit here and go, I don't know, and that's not very good radio.
Well, the offensive piece, I think, is almost wholly a tenet of they were down 37-3. They were down 27-3 at home. So, like, you can't run the ball anymore. Sorry, you just can't do it. Like, if you're trying to win the game, if you have any chance of trying to get back in the game like that, when you're down by that much, you have to throw the ball. Now, do they have to throw it 55 times in a row? Probably not, but they have to throw it a lot. So I'm not going to get on them for that. The problem is the lack of production in the first quarter, in the first half, that allows them to be down by that many points, the turnovers, the penalties, all of those things offensively. So I'm not going to, obviously they need more balance in terms of run pass offensively to save your quarterback, if nothing else, because you're going to get him killed. He's not going to make Thanksgiving at this rate with all these sacks he's taking. But having said that, I do think part of this is a realization or reality that they got their doors blown off in the first half of two of the last three games, and you have to throw the ball if you're going to try at all to win those types of games. So ideally, you put some points on the board in the first half. Don't turn the ball over. You don't give up a dozen plays of 12 or more yards like you gave up to Chicago defensively, and you're in the game at halftime, and that allows you to be more balanced in the second half. It gives you a chance to be more economical throwing the ball than they've been the two of the last three games.
Yeah, I think that's very well put. David Aldridge with us here on the Hoffman Show, senior columnist for The Athletic. All right, David, I want to switch gears real quick with you before we let you go and talk a little bit of Wizards. Sure. Am I crazy that I think they're going to be better than everyone says? And I'm not talking good, but like that they could be around 500 and maybe even above 500 this season.
Oh, man. Greg, if they're around 500, then you got Coach of the Year material here in DC.
Let's go, Wes! Let's do it!
I will be very, very surprised if they're anywhere near 500 by the end of this season. I don't think that's realistic, and I don't think that's what they really want, to be honest with you. I mean, not that they're trying to lose. I'm not saying that, but I think they understand this is about starting to develop their young guys, starting to put a culture in place that is geared towards sustained long-term winning and not chasing a 33rd or a 34th win this year. That's not going to do you a bit of good at the end of the season. They just don't have enough talent to me, because a 500 team, you're a playoff team. You know what I mean? Like you're in the hunt for a play-in spot. And I don't think they have anything close to the amount of talent necessary to compete in the East. I mean, again, the team, Miami was down in the play-in tournament, right? Like they were on life support. Their season's about to end before they even made the playoffs, and they made the finals. So that tells you, that gives you an idea of the level of competition in the Eastern Conference. I just think it's too steep. And And I would just say, look, this is about, we got to find out if Koulibaly can play, right? You got to find that out.
Absolutely.
You got to find out, you know what I mean? Like, these are the things, you got to make a decision on Tyus Jones by the end of the year. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep him because he's going to be in high demand. He's going to be a really high demand free agent this summer, but maybe they can. If he likes it here and wants to make it go over here, I mean, it's possible, I guess. But those are the types of things that are more important to me than whether or not they win 33 or 34 or 41 games for that matter. I mean, I just think they're finally understanding that there's a bigger picture here than trying to sneak into the playoffs. Like, you have to do more than that. If you want to try and win a championship, you have to build something bigger than that. And I think with Winger and Dawkins and Schlenk, they're finally in that process. And that's the most important thing to me this year. If I'm watching the Wizards regularly, that's what I'm watching for.
I totally agree with you on that is the more important thing. But I think the thing that I find fascinating is, like, a guy like Gallinari can play, and you almost forget that he's on the team because everyone just assumed that they'd flip him, and they get out there for preseason. You're like, oh, right, he's 7 feet tall and can shoot threes. That's very useful. Like, I like unclogging the 4 position and letting Kuz kind of be there. Like, I think Poole's going to have a monster offensive year. And I just think from a style of play standpoint, like I've talked to Wes, I'm sure you have as well, about this modernization that he wants to go. And I kind of feel like they've already implemented some of the culture and style stuff that might accidentally lead to a few more wins this year. And of course, with the caveat that they could blow this thing up by the trade deadline because they do have some interesting, talented pieces that other teams might want. So, like, if that happens, of course, all bets are off, which is why I would highly recommend not betting on the Wizards this year. In a monetary, go down the street to MGM sense. But like that's kind of where I am, is like, I actually think they do have a little bit more talent than some people realize in guys like Gallinari, who, to be fair, might not be here by February.
Well, that's the point. If Gallinari plays well, he's not going to be here by February.
Right.
I mean, they'd be derelict to keep him past the deadline. I mean, that's the whole point. Is you're in the asset flipping business now, right? So if you're them, you have a player that a lot of good teams that are going to be in the playoffs would want at the trade deadline. So if if he shows he's healthy, the ACL's healed, and he can give you some minutes, why would you keep him if you're the Wizards? You're not keeping him. You're moving him as soon as humanly possible, right? And to a certain degree, again, Tyus Jones would be the most valuable guy, but they may, I think there's a chance they might want to keep him because he could be he could fit their timeline. He's not a rookie, but he's not 30. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So it's possible he could fit their timeline going forward if they decide that that's what they want to do. But yeah, I mean, this is about finding look, in 2 years, if there's more than 3 guys left on this team, they've done it wrong. You understand that, right? that's not what you're supposed to do with a rebuild. So again, It's about Koulibaly. It's about, Kuz and Poole are going to be Kuz and Poole. They're going to put up numbers. They're going to be fine. It's going to be up to the Wizards if they want to flip them at the end of the year, or if they want to hold on to them. I can't imagine Kuzma's going to be here after this season, but I could be wrong. Poole, again, because he's only 24, there's more of a chance that maybe he fits a timeline going forward. He could be a piece going forward if you like what he's doing, you like how he's leading and all those sorts of things. But you'll find all that out this year. But everybody else, I'm not going to. Kispert, possibly. Yeah, I like Kispert.
I like Kispert. I think he's a great culture guy as well.
Yeah. I mean, Kispert, and you know what I really like about Kispert is he tells the truth. I mean, He said, look, this was garbage what we did this last year. This wasn't good enough, you know, and we got to do better. And I like that. And he can shoot the ball. He can shoot the basketball. So that's a big skill in the league. Denny is going to go down to the wire, I think. Whether they extend him, he's eligible for a rookie extension. They have to have it done by the start of the regular season if they're going to do it. Otherwise, he becomes restricted. The last guy they did that with, they didn't offer it to him, and they wound up trading him to the Lakers. So, I mean, that is entirely possible with Denny Avdia. Not to the Lakers specifically, but if he doesn't get extended, there's a very good chance that they could trade him by the deadline too. And again, they should do that if they can't find a number that makes sense for them. Because this is all about 4 years from now, Craig. It is not about what they do this year. It just isn't.
No, that 100%. But it might be fun. Well, so that could be.
It'll be fun.
Yeah,
Yes,
the wins, we'll see. But Wizards basketball, enjoy it while it lasts. All right, David, thanks so much, man. Always appreciate the time, and hopefully I'll see you in person, probably at FedEx Field sometime soon.
Absolutely, Craig. Thank you very much. Appreciate
That is
it. David
David Aldridge, everybody. The Kurt Gowdy Award winner, is a member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Just an all-around A-plus gent and A-plus journalist, senior columnist of The Athletic, with us here on The Hoffman Show.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.